is my tutorial on how to replace a neutral safety switch. So first things first, whenever you're working with electrical, get that off of there. Always disconnect your battery. I mean, the switch is electrical, and you're going to have to actually have your car engaged and in neutral to make this happen. So after that's done, get inside the truck, pardon the mess, and so then you'll take your ignition, push it forward, and put your transmission into neutral. Now, if you're doing that, I have my car up on jack stands. Before you put it in neutral, firmly apply the parking brake and make sure you have some stopping mechanisms back there. And just for safety's sake, I got them so they're not gonna. I have them on the front and back end of the tire, but I'm also just gonna take a big board and make sure it doesn't rock around. Always try to be safe as you can, especially when you have a giant vehicle up off the ground. Okay, next thing is your neutral safety switch itself. Now that, let's see if this will adjust for light, is right here in the Silverados, and I'm assuming it's the same for the Tahoes and Suburbans and Yukons and Yukon XLs. It's mounted on the right here. You see where the transmission is, and there's your transmission fluid pan, and there's your starter, or your neutral safety switch. And what this does is it senses whether or not the car is in drive or first or second or third or reverse or neutral or park. And it's like the same thing when starting. It acts like how a clutch does when you're starting a manual transmission. The clutch, when you depress it in, it initiates the switch, which tells the engine, which sends a signal to which allows the signal to go through the wires to the starter relay to start the starter. Alright, next step is you need to detach this thing from the shifter cable. So we pull it right up there with and then next step is to get the upper and lower cable system out. And since I need two hands to do that, I'm going to stop the video, but this is the next thing that you need to do is getting this set of cables out and this set of cables out. So I'm running into a little bit of a problem, not a major one, but I got one of the wires out, the lower one, and but the upper one, I've noticed, I'm not sure if you can see it that well, but my switch is actually cracked right here. So it probably is the cause of my problem. So I'm going to skip a step to try to get this thing down. It's a wire hanging down, so let's see. Let's just edit that. Okay, so right here is a bolt that I just removed. It takes a 15 millimeter socket, and that is what holds this little piece onto your transmission to shift it to park, neutral, drive, whatever. So you'll take that off. It'll click as you're turning it, but that's just because you're basically shifting your transmission by hand. So what you need to do is take that off, be gentle with it, and then also make sure you get your wires off. They're really deep wires, so it's going to take a little bit of force to get them off, but don't go too hard on it because you don't want to end up breaking these wires. This is a sensitive string of wires, so I guess the point I'm trying to stress is when you're pulling them out, like, don't grab onto the wires and just start yanking, because you're going to run more risk of pulling them out of this wiring harness than you are pulling the wiring harness out of the switch. So I am going to get this thing unbolted, and well, let's see. I know these bolts up here are slightly smaller than the 15. Maybe it's a 14 or 13. Do this trick. Yeah, 13. 13 millimeter is what you're going to need to get the bolts on the switch off. There's the underside of the switch right there. That right there, the what the light is shining on is the linkage into the transmission. Right over there, you can see it's popped off is a 13 millimeter bolt. No, Caitlin, this is Daddy's. And right up in there, that little inset is where another 13 millimeter socket is. Now, when you're working with this, I guess mine's a special case because you can see where my switch is cracked in half, and so I just, and while I was trying to pull that out, it basically just made the crack worse. So I was able to pull that up. But in a normal scenario, you're going to want to get that wire out before you can actually access where this 13 millimeter bolt is. So next thing for me is I'm going to pry this off. I've been doing it with a screwdriver, and you just kind of ease it off. You don't want to force it. And then next step for me will be getting that last wire out. Here is my special case switch. The blue one right here, the one with the blue plastic, is the upper wire harness. The one with the, I guess, red plastic, red rubber is the lower wiring harness. And for my case, I had to literally break that thing out with several screwdrivers and such. There's the whole kind of littered all around. It's like a whole arsenal of tools that I use to screw with this thing. But basics of it is they're deep wires that plug into those things, and you need to be careful with it. And if you're taking this thing out and it's definitely the switch that's a problem, and you don't mind paying the $35 for the switch, I recommend breaking the switch as opposed to yanking out the wires, because reattaching wires sounds a lot more time consuming than breaking a switch you're throwing away anyway. So next up is I am going to install the switch and put everything back together. Right up here is your newly installed switch, or my newly installed switch. Try to get the light so it's not so bright. Right there, it looks nice and clean, as opposed to my dirty old broken one. And I've got the 2 wires pressed in there, and everything is installed. When you're putting on this piece, the lever that attaches to your column shifter, make sure you do not put it on backwards. Because your truck still will shift. So you got, what is it? Park, reverse, neutral, drive, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got all those switches. And if you run into a situation where you're not sure which is which, if you push, once you got that lever on, you can control it with your hand. You can push your transmission all the way forward and all the way back. So what you do is just push it all the way towards the front of the truck, and then you're in park. And then go ahead and take your transmission and push that all the way to park, and snap the two together. Or if you're having trouble putting it in park, drop it down to neutral, flip your switch back to, and then put it in, and everything should line up for you. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I hope this helps you out.